So I wanted to see if I could create some new watercolor texture techniques using some of the materials that I had around the art studio. So the first step that I always like to do is wet my paper and then go in with some nice juicy color. This time I wanted to kind of keep things a little more in control with the water right off the bat. So I used my spray bottle to wet the two halves of my paper. I have it taped down to a sheet of plexiglass with washi tape. And now I'm just dropping in nice juicy color and sticking with the same colors and kind of living in the land of analogous play because I know that my colors are going to bleed together with the wet and wet technique. And I really want those bled together colors to create beautiful new colors. So then I have all of these plastic cups around the studio, and I use them when I'm gluing down parts of my collages. I use them when I'm teaching different classes and I want to give some watered down white for like splattering effects of the stars in the sky. So they come with caps and I've never used the lids really. But I started thinking about the fact that when you put down plastic wrap, bubble wrap onto wet watercolor surfaces, and then you let it dry, anywhere the plastic touches changes how the watercolor reacts. So I put a bunch of the caps down upward and downward, and then I put a old sketchbook on top of that and then weighed it down with a heavy art history book so that I could let it dry with some weight on it to ensure that the plastic was touching the wet watercolor surface, and then I would have some really interesting texture once it dried. And then I spun my plexiglass sheet around so that I could easily paint the other side. This one I wanted to play with some other different colors. No rhyme or reason to it, just picking colors that I like and sticking with analogous colors, in this case cool colors, so that they bleed together and make some really beautiful new blue violets along the way. Now the paper I'm using is a mixed media Canson paper. I normally love this paper, but the last couple times that I've bought the big 18 by 24-inch sheets, it hasn't been as good of quality. I'm finding it rippling a lot more. You can see that in both of these paintings. The paper is just rippling like crazy, even though it's taped down. And that didn't used to be the case with the Canson mixed media. So I'm going to keep getting it and trying and experimenting with it, hoping that it's just some fluke in the paper that I have. But because I'm not terribly happy with the paper and I'm going for textured watercolor, it's kind of okay for stuff like this. So for this one, I have a bunch of yarn in the art studio from different projects that my kiddos have gotten interested in. And knowing that the fibers are going to absorb the moisture and leave a mark, I decided to cut up a bunch of strands of the green yarn, just the one I happen to grab. Color of the yarn doesn't matter. And then I laid those down on the wet surface. And then again, I wanted to weigh it down. So I'm using an old manila envelope. And then again, I'm going to put a heavy, thick book on top of it, and I'm going to let it dry. These are the results. They're really beautiful. I love them so much. I am excited about these two new techniques, and I can't wait to play with them more, to try other plastic objects, to see what other kinds of effects I can get. I'm definitely going to play with some other different kinds of fibers, different widths of yarn, and really explore that further. Because the yarn especially is extra exciting because it kind of reminds me of microscopic imagery when you really zoom in and kind of see wormy things. If you liked it, definitely give the video a like. I will be sharing lots more in the future, so don't forget to subscribe so that you get notified when new videos are added. And I'll see you next time.